Back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie O'Leary. Rutgers football has added another big-time commitment to the class of 2025, this time in four-star linebacker Kamar Archie, who committed about a half an hour ago at this point. It is 12:30 Eastern here. He committed at noon to Rutgers. We'll get into everything that went into that commitment. We have a new kickoff specialist, another foreign kicker. We'll get into him and a few other topics. But first, as always, this podcast is presented to you by Night and Day Apparel. Beat the heat this summer with our hot one-of-a-kind products. Temperatures rising, there's no better time to refresh your wardrobe with cool and stylish summer essentials. Whether you're planning a beach getaway, picnic in the park, or just simply lounging in the yard, we've got you covered. Visit our website today and explore a full range of summer essentials from pool floats and spatulas to bathing suits and tank tops. If you use our promo code Rutgers Rivals, you can get 10% off at your purchase. Shop now and keep shopping.
The pool floats are back.
The pool floats are back. So if you wanted a Block R pool float for the summer, they are back in stock. I know that they flew off the shelves the first time. So if you want one, I would get on that right away. Use our promo code and you get 10% off. So
there you
go. But Archie is the last crown jewel in this absolute heater of a recruiting class. He's one of, I believe, 10 or 11 four-stars in the state. Rutgers has cleaned up in New Jersey, unlike any time in recent memory. You have been talking about how it's one of the best class in state that you've ever seen in your 10 plus years of covering Rutgers. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about how Kamar Archie ended up at Rutgers. This is a kid who kind of hit like phenom status early on. He was starting as a freshman, I believe, at Ewing before he transferred to Hun. Mm-hmm. Greg Schiano offered him in 2021. So this is a kid who the staff has been on for a very long time, and they were finally able to reel him in. Tell us a little bit about his recruitment and how he ended up at Rutgers.
Yeah, so Rutgers actually offered him first before anyone else, and that was back in, I believe, May or June of 2021. Like you said, he was still at Ewing at the time, but he's also been to campus well over 20 times since. Just on any time there was a game, he was there. Anytime there was a junior day, even though he wasn't a junior at the time, he was there. This kid was at Rutgers probably more than some of the writers, to be honest with you, which is crazy to say. But he has just been a long time like Rutgers guy, New Jersey guy, likes the idea of staying home. He built a really good relationship with the staff. One of the big factors that played into his commitment, actually, that's a little interesting tidbit, is the fact that the DC is also the linebackers coach. That played a huge factor. He built a good bond with Harrisimiak from the get-go. Obviously, he was going to interact with him regardless because he's the defensive coordinator. But having that guy as a position coach too helped a big amount. Greg Schiano's just been on this guy forever. Like you said, like I said before, there's a first offer was from Rutgers. So. Yeah, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, they just put in the work, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, when you see a kid that's visited campus like 10 plus times, it usually pays off. But I mean, this is just a great get for Rutgers. Another four-star, like you said before, it's a very deep class for Jersey, number 7 overall in the state, and I think you could argue he could be higher than that, but this class is insane. Like you have number 6 and number 7. No, I'm sorry, number 5, number 6, number 7 in the state. When previously we were talking about it, 7 months ago, we didn't know if they get a top 10 kid. Now they got 3 of the top 7. So hell of a haul for Rutgers. And this is, like you said, the crown jewel of this class.
Yeah, he's ranked 7th in the state, like you said. Rutgers is just, they're having articles written up a bit by the national guys talking about how good of a June they had. Now that's extending into July. Archie, though, he was a kid who, if you would have told me when he was a freshman that he would end up being a 5-star, I probably would have believed you given the hype he had. He probably didn't grow to the size that I think you would have, assigned a 5-star status to for a linebacker. He's listed at 6'1", 228 pounds. He's a big bodied guy. He is one of the most ripped high schoolers you'll see from you seeing him multiple times. You said he's just massive. So you could tell he's lives in the weight room. He kind of, I can't tell who he reminds me of, but he's a guy who just kind of does everything for his team at Hun. He's the standout running back. He's the star of defensive player. Kind of just does everything for them. Tell us a little bit about his game and kind of where you see him fitting in the defense.
Yeah, so he's really good at being a read and react linebacker. Like, he's able to read the play pre-snap pretty well, whether it be a run play, pass play, and diagnose it that way. He does a really good job of shedding the blockers off of him, getting through the traffic to get in the backfield, the offensive backfield. I mean, he's a really good linebacker, and he's got a lot of speed. Like, he has all the kind of traits you want. And like you mentioned, obviously you would love for him to be a little bit taller, but 6'1" not bad at all. It might be more like 6 foot, but I also wouldn't be surprised if you saw him as like a pass rusher in a little bit, because he has a really good wingspan to get around those outside edge blockers. So I just think he's a surefire tackler. He's just a really good prospect overall. And there's a reason why he's that's basically the reason why he's a 4-star linebacker.
Yeah, I think you had an interesting anecdote. You were talking to somebody close to him, and it sounds like he's got some legit insane speed as well.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that. 22 miles per hour he was clocked in via like they use like GPS basically through the. I know everyone calls it the sports bra, but it's like the guys that wear the catapult things. It is able to read and kind of just get a bunch of data, whether it be like running on the field in games, whatever. They tracked him at 22 miles per hour in a game. That's the hell. Like,
yeah, and I remember when Deshaun Benjamin scored that touchdown. He had like one of the fastest speeds of the week, according to some analytics site that takes basically game film and converts, how they're moving on film into miles per hour. And he was at like 22.9, I think. So for a guy in high school to be moving 22 miles an hour as a 200 and almost 30-pound linebacker, that is insane.
It's absolutely insane. This guy, and for his, like you said, his size, his speed. I asked his coach, who obviously has coached a bunch of different guys, whether it be 4 stars. I think Hunt School might have had a 5-star at one point, but they produce at a high rate in terms of talent. And I asked him, I was like, compare him to anyone. It doesn't have to be like a player you coached. It could be an NFL player, current, past. He goes, I don't know if I can, like, honestly, because there's no one that has that speed and that size together that I've ever seen on the football field. So I think he could be an early special teams guy for Greg Schiano, because he loves to do that with those guys. But I think this has the potential to be an all-conference linebacker down the line.
Yeah, that's super high praise for a coach who's probably seen how many Power 4 or Power 5 level recruits go through those doors.
Yeah. And we didn't even mention that too, because this is huge for Rutgers to get back into the Hun School. It's a school that, like, when Chris Ash was offering guys, it was like, yep, no shot. And then all of a sudden they get what? This is the third since Schiano returned in 2020, December 2019? Yeah,
Jacob Allen was the number 1 player in the state. Obviously, his career was derailed by injuries, but Logan Blake they got as well. But every year, it seems like you look at the top 10 recruits in the state, and one of them is bound to be a Hun School kid.
Yep. And one of their 2026 kids in top targets, Chase Enlau, is a running back that they just got recently, and he's now at the Hun School. So someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so this is commitment number, I believe, 29 for the class.
I think so.
Yep, commitment number 29. This is their 4th 4-star of the class. Just overall, I think some of these guys are a little underrated as well. Every one of these kids has serious Power 4 interest. Like, there's very few kids you can go down the list that are like, oh, well, his best offer was Rutgers. He chose Rutgers over Toledo and, insert MAC schools. They're landing very sought-after kids. Where would you rank this class in terms of all-time recruiting classes, at least in the Rivals era for Rutgers?
I'd probably say number 1. Like, I know it's crazy to say, but because you look at that one class with who was it? Was that Savon's class?
Darius Hamilton.
Darius Hamilton class. Yeah, that was what, 2011?
That was 2012.
2011 was the Savon one, right?
Yep.
I mean, you look at that class, it's hard to argue because Darius Hamilton was a 5-star.
Yep.
Obviously. And then, like, you had a bunch of offensive linemen like J.J. Denman, Chris Muller, Deontay Carew. Like, that was the pinnacle, basically, of Rutgers football recruiting. But, yeah, I'd argue that this class is better. This class has 29 kids, and all of them are Power 4 capable prospects. That one had 19. And don't get me wrong, great class in its own right. Like, easily number 2. But I think this one has to surpass it. I think that there's just too much star power, and it's not just. I know having Hamilton obviously helped the ranking with the last one, but this one, like, it's just top to bottom. There's a stud at just about every position group. You have a lot of different players too, like that have different capabilities. Like, they're not all 4 stars, but you have a couple of those 4 stars, and some of those 3 stars that we have. I think we have underranked, honestly. Like some of those 5.7s, I think you could bump them up to 4 stars too. And it's just I think it's an overall better class.
I'd agree, and obviously the size of the class plays into this as well. But, the more kids you take, the more likely you're going to end up with some talent or some stud players. I can't wait to just have these kids get on campus, and the season that we all expect Rutgers to have. I don't expect any of these kids to decommit anyway, but add in that the season's expected to be a really high watermark for the program under Shiano in the 2.0 era is even more exciting. Is there anything specifically else about Archie or the class that you wanted to hit on before we hit another topic here?
Not one thing, I guess, is just there's a lot of buzz in that building right now. Just from talking to people, talking to sources. I mean, of course, this is a huge recruiting class. I just said it's probably their best ever since Rivals started tracking the data back in 2002, I think it was. But there's a lot of buzz that if the season goes the way they think it could go, this could be this is going to explode. Like, this whole thing we're just not even reaching the peak. Like, it's just going to keep going and going and going. And if they have the season, like, say 9 wins, 10 wins, it's going to be insane. This has the potential to be, I don't want to jinx it, but knock on wood, 06 all over again, maybe.
Wow.
So
yeah, it's a great time to be a Rutgers fan. And when does training camp start for football?
Oh, it's starting early this year too. It's at the end of the month sometime because they're playing on that stupid Thursday.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I think what is July? I'm looking at July now. Probably 30th, 29th, something like that.
Okay.
Of July, obviously.
Where does the Rutgers 25 class rank now nationally? Is it back in the top 10?
I believe it is. Let me double check so they only count the top 20 recruits for every school because it would be unfair. They're sitting at number 11, actually. They are just outside the top 10. But that would be one. Oh, I forgot Oregon's in Big Ten now. So that's 2, 3, 4. They are 5th in the Big Ten. That's crazy. 5 of the top 11 teams are Big Ten teams, but 5 of the top. Yeah, I said that right. Yeah. It's crazy.
They've absolutely killed it. Can't wait to see what they've got in store next, because the 26 class is already off and running too with the Sidwar committed. So excited to see what else they can do to close this class and start the 26 class.
I don't think they're done yet either, to be honest. I think there's going to be like a late bloomer they'll probably go after. Now there's no names on the board currently, but I could see like an offensive lineman popping up, because they did tell me they would have took one. But Jaden Mann was the last target that was available, and it sounds like he's going to end up elsewhere. Also, who was the other one? Oh, they don't have a tight end. So just late bloomers, you never know.
Yep. Wouldn't surprise me if they decided to ultimately go the portal route for a tight end if they don't find a high school kid that they want to bring in.
Yeah.
Speaking of commitments, we talked about the 25 class and the 26 class. Let's talk a little of the class of 24, because Rutgers got another recruit who's on scholarship to be brought into the program. It is a kickoff specialist. His name is Jack Scullion. He is an Irish kicker. I think he was a goalie playing soccer, I believe. He is being brought in to be a kickoff specialist. He's already on campus. He's been there for like a week, you said. Talk a little bit about how they, the decision to bring in another kicker this late in the process, I'd say.
So they obviously want to get a kickoff specialist. They don't want to have Jay Patel could do it, but I don't think he has the strongest leg to do that type of thing. Obviously, he's very accurate, though, for a field goal kicker. But this kid basically just picked up a football recently. I want to say it was like maybe less than a year ago. Wow. And he just started kicking with his name's, I don't know how to pronounce it, Tadhg. Taj.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, he's a guy that started kicking American football a couple years ago. Got into it really, really heavily, and then all of a sudden got playing American football over here. I think with the American football in the Canadian Football League. Spent a couple years there, went back home to Ireland, and now he's training a bunch of kickers. So it's like essentially Pro Kick Australia, who I think Rutgers fans are pretty familiar with, but for Ireland. On top of it, it helps a lot that the former kicker is now signed with the Jude McAtamney is now signed with the Giants as their kickoff specialist.
Yep.
If you would have told me he was going to be in the league, I would have told you you're nuts. But apparently, they'll do anything in the league. But this is just an interesting get. Someone said on our boards, and I don't know where this is coming from or who article it is to even credit them. But apparently, one of the coaches saw him on a video of him kicking, and that was basically it. And they're like, "Hey, send us some more clips." And it just kind of went from there, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I think you saw how successful the plan was last year to how to handle their specialists. I thought they did obviously Jay Patel as a freshman or redshirt freshman had one of the best seasons ever for a Rutgers kicker, and considering accuracy and things like that. He had multiple kicks over 50 yards. Then Jude McAtamney, probably you could count on one hand how many kickoffs he had last year that weren't touchbacks. Just booming every kick, and that was such a problem for Rutgers because those are big plays waiting to happen, mostly bad big plays. Occasionally you'll get a fumble on a kickoff, but mostly those chunk returns can really suck the life out of you. Start a short field, but we were consistently just starting teams out at the 25, and that's kind of what you need from your kickoff specialist. Just boot it through the end zone. You don't need a guy doing directional kicking unless you're in a weird situation. And he also, to his credit as well, he did have some really big plays, directional kicking. We got that kickoff. What was it? It bounced at the 5-yard line. Was that against Michigan State? And we recovered it.
Fumbled it.
Because the kick was one of those weird intermediate levels where you think he's gonna do an onside kick, and he kicks it not fully deep but moderately deep, and puts them in a no man's land. So I think they really kind of figured out what works for them last year with the kickoff specialist in Jude, and they wanted to do that again, and they got a kid that they really like. So see how it goes. But I'm not a kicking specialist, so I don't really have a ton to add here on Jack Scullion other than the philosophy of it.
I was told he obviously could be a field goal kicker too in the future, maybe a long field goal. We've seen Jude do it a couple times when it's a little bit out of Patel's reach, but just another scholarship kid too, which I kind of find interesting that they put another kicker on scholarship, a kicker on scholarship. But yeah, I can't complain. Like you said, kickoffs are very essential nowadays. So as long as you can boot it out the end zone, who cares?
Yep, definitely. What else? Is there anything else that you wanted to hit on? It could be outside of football. I don't have anything else here on my list.
No, the Jersey Shore Basketball League, everyone's kind of asking us, do we know who's playing? Do we know who's going to play? Tonight? What about next week? Should I go next week? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. These guys just show up whenever they want to. I'm told they only have to show up to one game to be eligible for playoffs. So you might see one game out of I know Martini and Durkak played last week. You might see one game out of, I don't even know who else. Jeremiah. Is Jeremiah Williams playing? I think he is. Maybe one game out of Gio. I know Gio, Shavar Reynolds, Miles Kale, that they all haven't really showed up yet, but they'll just show up to a game, be eligible for playoffs. Playoffs come, that's when it really matters. But speaking of guys that are in the league, Ron Harper Jr. is going to be playing with the Boston Celtics, NBA champion Boston Celtics, this summer league that starts at the end of the month, and Caleb McConnell's playing with the Charlotte Hornets. And I know you said it off the pod, but I want to mention it on the pod too. The fact that he's with the Hornets now instead of the Thunder is a great sign for him because there was no shot. He was making the deepest team in the league with the Thunder. So,
yep.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I don't know if they'll play in the JSBL, though, anymore because that's kind of a little more important.
Yeah, I think their JSBL careers were closed off as soon as they got those invites to be on NBA. summer league teams. So excited for those two guys, especially Ron, who was banged up this past year. He had the shoulder surgery. Caleb had a pretty good year playing for the Oklahoma City Blue, I think. That's the team name.
Yeah, weird
who won
name, but
the
yeah.
they won the G League title. So glad to see he's still kind of kicking around in the league, because if he can round out his offensive game, which is it's much easier said than done, but he could be a guy who plays in the league. But he's not a finished product yet, so we'll see how things go for him.
Yeah.
I hope everybody had a great holiday. I want to thank everybody who listened to our most recent podcast and also rated and reviewed. We had a bunch of new reviews, so appreciate everybody who did that, and everybody who is currently following us on YouTube and their favorite podcasting app. We also really appreciate you guys as well. But for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Knight Report podcast, signing off.